Thanks for tuning in, and in this first episode I'm going to talk about Christmas and my experiences as Santa Claus. That's right, I have been Santa Claus. So thanks for tuning in to this very first episode of One Day I Will Tell the Truth. And I thought I'd keep it a bit lighter for the first episode, given the year that we've had, and a lot of people have been doing it tough. And I think coming towards Christmas, people are going to be doing it even tougher this year with everything else that's been going on. So I just thought I'd share my experiences from working as a Santa. What I found pretty early on in the piece, and it hadn't crossed my mind at all until I actually started working, was the power that the parents give Santa Claus. And there's a process that kids go through when they're getting to meet a stranger, and Santa pretty much helps to teach children that process. And it's one about trust, it's about introductions, it's about the vibe that you get from people, it's about trusting the opinion of those that you already trust. So for a young 1-year-old, 2-year-old child, being introduced to Santa by their parents is a big thing. Oh, look, there's Santa. He's really nice. Look how nice Santa is. Look at him. Yay, And I met hundreds of kids for the first time, and I was like their first stranger. And some of them would come close, and they'd run away. Then they'd come close. And for some, it was over a period of say a week. There was loads of examples where a mum would bring their child to see me every time they came to the shopping centre, or every time they came to do their daily or their regular shop. And mum would say, oh, we're just preparing him. He was good when he was a little baby. And that's the other thing, when they're babies, it doesn't matter. I heard dozens of stories of parents that were telling me how they just missed. They didn't bother last year. They tried last year and they couldn't. So we're trying again this year. There are the cases where an elderly couple might have had photos with Santa every year. For the last 30, 40, 50 years, they might have had photos with grandkids, with their kids, for as long as they can remember, and it might be the first year that their partner's passed away. So this one elderly lady, I'd spotted her looking at me a couple of times, and she came and sat next to me. It was during a quiet period. It was earlier on in early December, still a few weeks out from Christmas, and she just came and said, "Oh, hello, Santa. I just want to come and say hello." It was fine. She took a seat next to me on the lounge. She didn't want a photo, and she said, "Oh, I've been watching you." I said, "Oh yeah, okay." And she goes, "So you're doing a good job." I said, "Oh, thank you." She goes, "Oh, you're not like the other Santas. You take it seriously." And I was like blown. I was like, "What do you mean?" She goes, "Oh, look, I've been watching Santas for a long time. I've had dozens of photos over the years." And she was like, you take it seriously. You don't stop. A lot of the Santas just sit there and just wait for the next photo to be taken. But you walk around. I've seen you walking around and saying hello to all the kids, and not just the kids, to the older people as well. And that's important. That's important for a lot of people. I could sense that there was some loneliness there. She said, "Oh, look, I don't do the photos anymore," and she didn't have to say it. I knew that she'd lost someone close to her, and she didn't feel right to have a photo with Santa, not without her other half. That was cool, but just for her to sit down and say those nice things were lovely. I saw her another dozen times after that. Every time she came past, it was a wave and a g'day and how you going and how's the shopping going? It's good. And there was another elderly woman that came, and she had a photo with me, and she mentioned that her husband had passed, and obviously she'd had some closure with it. She'd gotten past a certain stage in her process. I just thought it was really great, and she was sharing this stuff with me, with Santa. So I guess the mask, the Santa mask, lets you really observe people and and you can be Santa and really get into that joy part of it. So I started dancing around and doing spins and all this crazy stuff. If people were walking past and I caught them glancing at me, I would wave and carry on until they waved back. And people soon got the idea and they just waved straight away. And, there was a whole chain of escalators. And when it was quiet, I would just look up at the escalators, and everyone takes a glance at Santa when they're, whether they're walking past or a couple of you, oh yeah, what's that guy doing down there? Oh yeah, what's creepy Santa doing? And I'd be dancing, spinning, and making people wave at me, and it was fantastic. I loved it. I want to share a couple of other experiences. So I've talked about introducing to young kids and how important that is, but there's another side to that, and that's kids with disabilities, which just takes it to a whole other level. And again, that had been mentioned in the training at the boot camp, but you just don't fathom what families are going through, what people are going through, especially at this time. And it's not just kids. I should add it. It's younger teenagers, even adults with disabilities, some of whom have full-time carers, some that live semi-independently, who it becomes clear their families are no longer a part of their lives. And that's something that, as Santa, you've got to deal with. There were a couple of standout instances, primarily with kids that are on the spectrum, kids with autism. There were so many kids and so many people that I took photos with. There's this one in particular that stands out, and it's there was a mum with a young daughter and a young boy. He had to be restrained. He was in a stroller and he needed to be restrained. His body would convulse, and he was non-verbal. That's right. So I was introduced to him, and the mum said, "Look, we haven't been able to have a photo in the past. We're going to try again this year." And it's like, fine. And I kept a peaceful demeanor. I didn't do too many crazy movements, but I just said g'day to him and crouched down and gave him the Santa fist pump. He acknowledged it. I just said hello and just stayed with him for a few minutes, just there, not doing too much, and letting him take it all in, I guess. We did that on 3 separate occasions, so on 3 separate visits. I think it was the 4th go. It was a weekend, so the father, who I later would find that was the stepfather, came as well, and it was the family photo of 4. And I could see the mum and dad were nervous. They brought him over and they unstrapped the stroller, and I think they were in shock. He was fine. They got him sitting next to me, and I put my arm around him, and he was happy for me to do that. And that's I could see the mum tearing up, and the stepdad. I said, "Come on, guys, let's get this done. Let's have this photo." And they got in there, and they got the shot. Sometimes you have a lot of attempts, and people can be pretty frustrating. I think it's some sort of competition or something. But with this particular family, it was just about just having that one photo where he wasn't uncomfortable. It didn't matter if he was smiling or not smiling, or his smile wasn't right. It was about just getting that family photo, and we got it. And a few days later, the mum came back, and forgive me if I get a bit emotional on this one, but because whenever I talk about it, it seems to hit me in the chest. So she came back a few days later, and she got me this massive box of chocolates, like the favourites, but the jumbo size, the big ones. And I was just blown, And they came to see me every time they were back in the shopping centre until Christmas to say g'day every time. Yeah, it was wild. The other one that really stands out was one of the last ones. It was on the final day. It was on Christmas Eve, and I'll never forget this one either. It was about midday, so I'd been going for 3 hours, 3-4 hours, and it was full on. And a woman had come around through the exit side of my compound, and she'd pulled aside one of the elves. The elf came and had a chat with me, and she said, "Oh, look, this woman just come around, and she said that there's a young guy who's with a carer at the end of the line, and he's not doing too well. He's really stressed out. I think he's worried that he's not going to get a chance to have the photo because he's looking at the length of the line, and he's just." And so I took a bit of a peek and had a look, and I said, "Yeah, no worries, but bring him around." I only had to take half a glance, and I knew, yeah, no, we don't need to, no one needs to be going through that. Not while they wait for a photo of Santa. So we did the next family, and we got him in. And once he realised it was his turn, he just came over and he grabbed me. And when I say grabbed, he locked me in his arms, and it was the hardest hug I've ever experienced in my life. It was like if he wanted to, he could break every bone in my body. It was actually, I was hugging him back, but it was like, whoa, this guy. But he was just like, Santa, Santa, Santa. He was so excited and so happy to be hugging Santa. And it really got me, you know. And I think at that moment, everyone, all those people that were lined up waiting, they didn't care about anything else. You know, they weren't worried about what they were shopping for or doing next. You know, a lot of them with their kids there. I think most of them were grateful that their kids were healthy. They were grateful for what they had. And yeah, and so this young man, we had a photo together, and he bought his photo, and he hugged me before he went to choose his photo. And then once he'd gotten his photo, I'd done another family in the meantime, and he came back to give me a goodbye hug again. And I remember and this gets me as well. The family after, I don't know if it was the dad or the mum or whoever it was, but they just said, "Good job there, Santa." I said, "Yeah, mate, it's a lot tougher than what it looks." And he goes, "Yeah, I can tell." He goes, "Shit." So yeah, it was. I think most people realise that it's a pretty tough job, old Santa. One of the things I also wanted to touch on was how important this time of year is to different ethnic groups in the community, different migrant groups, religious groups, people, families that are just trying to connect with the community, with the wider community. And I just found people who don't share any really religious connection to Christmas, that was some of the most Christmassy people happening. You know, they'd get all matching tops and the hats, and they were so Christmassy, and it was their way of connecting to this festive time, this holiday, and how it's celebrated here in Australia. But I'm sure this happens everywhere in the world, where families, members of groups that, you know, that are just trying to connect, and they spend all year working and getting their kids through school and you know, making ends meet, and then it comes this time at Christmas where they can go and get their Christmas photo, and they can be a part of what everyone else is doing. And I think that was another thing that I just hadn't fathomed to me. I'd never thought about it. It was every day, especially as we got closer to Christmas, all these families from, you know, different ethnic backgrounds, just making sure they got their Christmas photo, making sure they went all out with the Christmas spirit. I'm a watcher. I see things, and you know, people say they're people watchers. I love that sort of thing, and I would watch the line, and I would watch families watching other families, and there'd be times where everyone was one, you know. all different ethnic backgrounds, but we're all one. It was fantastic. I used to love it, you know. And I used to have a running commentary with a couple of my helpers, and I go, how good is this? How good's this family? How good's that family? And they were younger, and they didn't really understand where I was coming from. I said, look, and then one of them who was a bit older and who was really into the Christmas thing, and she'd worked as a helper for Christmas for like since she was 16 or something, and she was in her early 20s. She loved it. She knew what I was talking about. So there's that whole connection thing that Christmas that Christmas brings, and that Santa helps to bring to the community, which was something that I hadn't really grappled with, hadn't had to really, but it's really important. And I think when people are out there in the shopping centres and doing their shopping, if there's a long line of people getting their photos taken, just hang back a bit, watch them getting their photos taken, watch them trying to, watch different groups trying to connect. It's fantastic. Had a Jewish family taking their photo, sitting next to me. We're Jewish, we don't really celebrate Christmas, but got to get the photo to the grandparents, with Santa, best way. And I was sending it to Israel. There was heaps of different nationalities getting their photos done for their parents. So family's a big thing, and obviously, that's something I've always been aware of, but this just hammered it home for me. So I guess at this stage, it's only fitting that I say Merry Christmas, regardless of your background or whether you celebrate Christmas or not. It is an important time of the year. Santa is an important figure at this time of the year, and I hope that what I've shared with you highlights that. In the next episode of One Day I Will Tell the Truth, I'll be talking about New Year's resolutions and giving up those addictions. I'll be talking about that. I've got quite a bit of experience in that area, so hopefully you can tune in then. In the meantime, again, Merry Christmas, and I look forward to having you tune in. Just a reminder that if you haven't subscribed already, to please do. And if you want to discuss or comment on any of the platforms, if they have that facility, please do. I'll be happy to respond and get into a discussion about what I've been talking about. So yeah, Merry Christmas again, and look forward to having you tune in to the next episode.